Good morning, Karin Aalberts. Welcome to the Syndeo podcast. Great to have you. You're gonna fill us knowledge full of all things EX and CX, so customer experience, employee experience. You've been doing this for a few years, I believe. Karin, welcome. For our listeners, just give us a little bit of background to yourself, your own in this particular space, what you've been doing for the last number of years and what you're doing currently.
Okay, well, thank you for having me here. To give a short introduction, I'm already working in this field for, well, I would almost say all my life, starting within customer experience, or I was always working with customers. If it was in a grocery store, or when I was working as an account manager for insurances, and later on as a data scientist for a wholesaler. I always worked with customers, with customer insights and customer data. And today I work at Orange Business, where I am leading the business consulting team for customer experience and employee experience. And I work as managing consultant together with our clients to improve customer experience and employee experience.
So you have a wealth of experience. Yeah, and when I was looking through your profile, it was interesting to see you were doing data science work quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
When it wasn't maybe quite as de rigueur as it is now. That I know we'll come on to this, but particularly in the AI and the GenAI industry, everyone's a GenAI expert or a data scientist or whatever. But like yourself, I've been in the customer experience contact center for 20 years. So you see a lot of repeat regardless of what the technology is. And I'm sure you've seen that over the years as well in terms of the industry, not just from a technology perspective, but how the industry is approaching customer experience. Tell me what you've seen, I suppose, or how you've seen it evolve over the last, 5, 10, 15 years. They've not Obviously, technology has helped it evolve, but I'm sure there are lots of other things from processes, how people are addressing it, and what the key issues they tend to face.
Well, when I started, I mostly worked in the sales and marketing departments and not so much in contact centers. That came later on in my career. So my first years, when I was working in the marketing and sales department as a data scientist, we were wondering how we could align our, basically what we were thinking about was how can we actually sell more towards our customers. And back then we had that old-fashioned channels like faxing machines, and they need to move to the e-commerce platforms. And the salespeople were thinking like, hey, but if we are moving from fax to an e-commerce platform, what will be actually my role? And that's where the thinking started, like, how can we actually help the salespeople, our salespeople, to sell more next to the e-commerce platform that they have? And we said like, okay, but we can develop a lot of models for you where you are the one that actually needs to sell. You are the one that can make that human connection. If we have just an e-commerce platform, then that's where they just can order things. But if you needed to stick that to your brand, you are the one that makes that human connection. You are the one that actually can sell towards your customers. You are literally the eyes and ears of the customer. And maybe I was working at a wholesaler that had it already very good in mind. So they were already on my first day. I literally went with the truck driver who was delivering all the goods to the restaurants, because I was working for a wholesaler for restaurants, snack bars, and hospitality. And we literally went to all the clients and just saw of what happens. And the salespeople were doing the same. So we were already thinking about, okay, what is actually that the customer needs? And that's basically went throughout my whole career, always thinking about how can we make that connection? What insights do we have? And actually always had the feeling that, okay, we have a lot of data, we have a lot of automation, but how can we actually assist the people who are in the front line to assist their customers better? And today, if I look at the past 15 years, it gets more and more easier. Back then, I was literally doing business lines and updating models. And today, I see that we have a lot of automation. Of course, also a lot of knowledge that is scattered everywhere that we need to bring together. But it gets faster and faster. So that's what I see today.
Interesting. And you mentioned moving from fax to e-commerce. Some of our listeners mightn't even know what a fax is, but that going back whatever 15 plus years was a digital transformation clearly, and so but we tend to think, particularly in the industry, that digital transformation is new. This is something that's only starting to happen, but the reality is digital transformation has been happening in organizations for 20 plus years, as you outlined, moving from a fax-based system to, what are the things that you would see from an organizational perspective, and what are they looking to address? And again, I don't mean that obviously the technology is a part of it, but what are the sort of things that they take into consideration as part of that digital transformation? And has that changed over the years?
No, it hasn't changed over the years, because it's always about what user-friendly tools can we use within our organization to support our employees and our customers, not to forget, and how can we make sure that they use it to the fullest, and what impact will it have. And change management and learning and adoption is a very important part. Technology is just a mean, and the same is with data. It's just a mean. It gives you a lot of insights, and it's evolving, but it should make your job easier, not more difficult. And still today, if I look at contact centers, we still see today that agents have 20 screens open, or that marketeers are using 3 to 4 systems to actually bring everything together. So yeah, it's becoming more complex, where we see the trend to simplify it, and that's really the need today, to actually simplify it more and more.
So do you see, interesting, you still see that complexity then of you say multiple screens, multiple systems to try and achieve ultimately one business goal that I assume is what the user is trying to achieve, be that in a marketing automation or be that in a CX perspective. That is still the case clearly in organizations.
Yes, I would even say that it's getting more complex, because if we are in front of our clients, they quite often say, but we have so many tools that we can choose from. Which one? Please advise me. The marketing and customer service technology stack is really expanding. And also the IT departments have difficulties with it, because all the time you have new tools, new features, and how are we going to handle it? And how can we use it to the best of our own needs? So yeah, I see it today, and they are really requesting for simplification.
And why do you think that? I mean, that's an interesting observation. I suppose it shouldn't be a shock to anybody who works within an enterprise organization, but you would have thought, that with the approach of more unified systems, both on the sales, marketing, and the experience side of things, that organizations are moving to, the much talked about single desktop, whether that's inbound or outbound or marketing. Well, we haven't got there yet, clearly. I remember, putting solutions in 10 years ago, and the single desktop was the sort of, we used to have the desktop wars. Whoever won the desktop would win the contact center or the CX. But clearly we haven't got there. Why do you think that is? Is that just because technology is evolving so quickly? Requirements are changing? Have you any insights into that?
Yeah, but even the customer demands, and then I make a clear distinction between the clients that we work for and the customers of our clients. So I also see it in the customer demand. They really want to know, want to have the information at their fingertips. and they expect that you know everything about them. If they have been on a website, if they had seen a marketing campaign, or if they went via diverse social channels, maybe even all the devices that they have. And as a customer service agent, they expect that you know that knowledge, that you know what they have. And actually to bring all that information together, that's very difficult and very hard. Even today, when I'm just talking to customers or to our clients, there are still clients that do not know what their actually inventory is, for instance, for products, or they cannot even make a live forecast. And if they can make it, it's very difficult to have it in all those systems or have a unified view. It's still there.
Yeah, I suppose it is interesting that from the customer experience perspective, we've been driving for maybe 10 plus years panel choice. You know, and vendors have been driving that, which is true. And what I suppose we've been driving, but consumers have also been demanding it. So I might want to phone you, I might want to email you, I might want to connect you in social, message, SMS, whatever it is. But clearly then the solutions from the vendor perspective haven't, and I'm talking about that the agent or the employee side hasn't been able to yet harmonize those to bring them into a single view. Is that, do you see that, or do you see that becoming less of a problem?
Oh, they are trying hard, but even at our at the vendors, I still see that organizations working in silos, or that we have a lot of applications that needs to be plugged in into their vendor landscape. Integrations are there, but needs to be done in a good manner. And it's nothing. I'm not against vendors, but what I see today and what's the urgent need is we have the vendor, but then it needs to be integrated in your landscape. And the vendor, I always say, brings all the tools and of all the bells and whistles, but then you need to tailor it to your own needs, to your own company specifics. And that is also looking at the architecture. And of course, you can go for one system for everything, but still you need to think about your architecture, about the information that you have, that you will bring in, and then also all the channels that a customer really would like to have. It seems to be still very difficult to have an agent that actually knows if a customer is switching from WhatsApp to a voice channel, to have that unified view. It's still very difficult. Yeah.
But so most, and I'll play devil's advocate because I also work on the vendor and work with vendors. Most vendors will say, well, you know, our solution can do all of this for you. So we can give you the data architecture. We can integrate to system X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Clearly in your mind, and I see you've got a wry smile on your face, that's not necessarily the case in the real world.
No, because I've also worked on the corporation, on the large corporate, and actually to understand your full architecture, that's already, as a large organization, a challenge. So and therefore you have a very good enterprise architectures. That's different than the architects of a vendor. They are very much focused on the architecture on their own solution, and then it needs to be integrated, but they have still a narrow view how everything is interacting and constantly updating. It's always if you are integrated, if you have already integrated, you need to work on the evolution of everything. And this is also why I always say you have your vendors, you have your integrators, but you also need to think about what is your core center of expertise. How, as a company, would you like to develop the capabilities on data, on technology, on the people? How are you bringing all those things together, and how are you evolving over time? It's not just an integration of a vendor. It's about really understanding your core capabilities and the progress over time, enhance your maturity. What are your what are the priorities that you have, because you cannot focus on only integrating and then expect that a vendor that is plug and play and everything will be there. It needs to be adjusted to your needs. You need to think about what is actually good for us, what is good for our market, how can we differentiate ourselves, and then just it's still technology that you're using. So yeah, for me, it's key that an organization should build up that expertise center. It's not just about the vendor. The vendor can bring all the bells and whistles, quite often very good bells and whistles, but you also need to adopt it. And also your organization needs to be ready for the change, because we can teach you everything. We can help you, but if you do not adopt it and your organization is not ready for that adoption, yeah, then you will also not evolve and have everything for your best efforts. So
Yeah. As I say, I was playing devil's advocate, but I wholeheartedly agree with you that any vendor who says, I agree, we all have lots of vendors have lots of bells and whistles, and some of them are pretty good, some of them are maybe not so good. But any vendor that says, our solution is the one-stop shop to help you, organization, corporate, solve everything is clearly, some of the mega vendors perhaps say they can do that, but the reality is what they end up doing is using, partners and third party and consultancy and systems integrators to help them pull it all together. So,
yeah.
We touched briefly earlier there on, the proliferation of channels and the problems that starts to cause from an organization perspective to pull that data and understanding together. I've often thought about, there's a buzzword called omnichannel in the industry. It's been around again for quite a while. And I often thought about, is this just vendor speak? If we just made this buzzword up, do organizations think like that? And then I noticed you have done omnichannel choice as part of your master's, a thesis in it. So I thought,
Yes.
no better person to ask about omnichannel and maybe explain it to me and explain it to our listeners what omnichannel choice is and why it's important.
Yes, that was where I started to realize that customer experience was all about how you interact with your customers, and that the channels that you're using is very important. Maybe to give a bit of the channel choice research that I have done was around channel choice and for an insurance company, where we had where I investigated or researched how would be if you are having a damage claim as a customer. What channel would be your preference to hand in your damage claim? And why was I researching it? Because back in the days, I worked for an insurance company as a claims handler. And as a claims handler, I got claims via, here we go again, fax, the faxing machines. We got them via the digital channels. We had a web form, and we got a lot of phone calls. And back in the day, I was wondering what would be different factors of a damage claim, like emotion. Well, it was about emotion, the need for solving a problem, maybe even your digital abilities, your capabilities. Would that influence your channel choice? And what channel would they choose? So that was where, omnichannel would start it. And the funny part is that what I thought as a claims handler, sitting on the phone, that would be probably the best way to hand in your damage claim, because then you could have a conversation, then you could help them out, make that emotional connection, solve for them all the problems. But in my research, that was not the case, because I forgot about the large group. And actually, the people said, no, I would like to hand in my damage claim online and not so much via a phone or via whatever. And do you know why? Because they actually could do the full story of what happened. Because it was a car accident, or they got robbed, or their house burned down. And they said, I just want to do my story, sit and just type it in, and nobody is interfering.
Interesting. So I guess what you're finding there, what you find that research was then the most important part for the consumer was the end-to-end journey, as in, as you call it, the story, and how do I get that across in a manner that's most convenient to me, as opposed to, as you say, someone interrupting, question answer, bots, or faxing.
It was just writing down and just hand it in. And if they did not have the online tools, then they was just using the faxing machine and not the telephone. And the same was, by the way, when I was working as a data scientist, we did similar research. Why are people just still using the faxing machine? That was because that for them was the easiest way. They walk into their big fridges, they just do their shopping list and they just fax it away. Because that's the most easiest and convenient way. It's not about having a telephone, not the interference. It's just about the ease of doing it. And emotion didn't play any role for a lot of people. Only when it's a very, very complex one, then they really like when the claims handlers call them back for clarification questions and just to soothe them a bit. But on the other hand, it was more like, no, it's something that we need to do. Just their job, go with the flow. So it's really about for me, channel choice or omni-channel or maybe immersive channels. For me, it's about how do I get something from the company that I need at this moment, regardless of the set of channels that we have. Today, we see people that are using WhatsApp, people are using TikTok, people are using to just answer questions to the company. If I have something that needs to be done now, I just pick the channel that I need. Quite often, I start with WhatsApp, and if I do not get a sufficient answer, I will use the call center or I will use a chatbot. So for me, it's how fast do I get information?
Yeah, and I think sometimes we on the supplier side maybe lose sight of that, I suppose, ability to provide what some would call a frictionless experience for the consumer, so the path of least resistance. And I'm not sure, when we talk about omni-channel or multi-channel today, I think we tend to just, for want of a better word, throw them out there and assume, and then, build in assumptions. Well, the other thing that it kind of annoys me from the organization perspective is this concept of channel switching, because it's driven by cost. So can we take them off the voice channel straight away and put them onto a messaging channel or WhatsApp or whatever it is, without consideration of why would I, as a consumer, what's in it for me? And I think it's often, those decisions are often driven by, and I understand we need to drive cost savings, and a large, part of any organization cost is people and contact center staff, etc. But do you still see that, I suppose, forcing consumers down channel as the sort of de facto way of doing it, or are organizations now much more cognizant of the friction issue, i.e., as you said, your research has outlined, giving consumers the path of least resistance to complete their particular outcome?
Well, I think, first of all, that the human interaction is still important, because we still see that a lot of people still like to talk to humans. But the point is more that if we do not think about, well, let's put it this way. In the self-service channels, if you can find a good answer, if you have a really good self-service portal, why do I need to call an agent? It depends very much on the person and the generation. But if you get that human interaction, you really need to think about to make sure that you have a good interaction. Because quite often what I see, if I call a call center myself, I got an answer which is not sufficient, or what I could even find in the online channels. And what's even more disturbing today is that I call a contact center and then I got that voice message saying you can also find the answers on the website. You should look there and there, or just you should go to the website. They are not even directing me for my question to the right parts of the website. So that's something that really annoys me. If I call a call center, I want to speak to somebody. Why are you not just why are you not helping me with answering that part? And that's for a lot of people that way. If we are in that sense that we really need to talk to somebody, then we want to talk to somebody and not get directed back to an app or a digital channel or whatever. On the other hand is if I'm on a digital channel and I got a bot or I got the reason to call somebody, and that's also research that if I on a digital channel and I know that I am able to call somebody if I not can find the answer, or if I cannot, then I'm more likely to look in the digital channels and look for that answer, because if I cannot find that answer, I can still call. So the task completion rate will be higher in your digital channels when you're just showing your numbers. It's just a feeling for a lot of people that, oh, they have my back. And the same is when you're calling a customer agent or a contact center. You just want to have a good answer. And if they don't have that answer, also fine, but be honest about it. And make sure that you follow up with either answering questions or giving status updates. That's important. I don't care about the channel or the channel choice as long as they help me. And that could be either WhatsApp, maybe even on gaming platforms these days or whatever. I'm so annoyed by but coming back to your questions, the role of AI, that's very important because that's also what should centralize, or at least that can be very helpful to have all that information at the fingertips of a call center agent, or having it available in a self-service portal. I expect that the customer, if I have a relationship with that company, and I do not have that much of relationships with the company, and don't force me to get that relationship, but there are each person has 4 or 5 brands that they really like, where they are like almost married to, and that's where I build up my relation. That's where I share my information with, so they should really know me. And if they take good care of me, then I'm fine. And it's also depending about a lot of people. Some people are more focused on where can I get the cheapest stuff. They are also very demanding, but they have maybe other brands. But if I speak for myself, I have also 4 or 5 brands where I do business with, and I expect from them that they know me. And if I have something, then they help me.
No, I agree, and I do find it somewhat bizarre still that, as you say, when you choose to lift a phone, if you still lift a phone these days, but due to call an organization, it's usually a choice of escalation that the consumer has made because they can't find it online digitally. And when your first thing you're hit with is, you can go onto our website and you can do X, Y, Z. I could understand that maybe 10 or 15 years when e-commerce wasn't really maybe as prevalent as it is now, but purely to God, we all know, and most people now know, well, I can go online and I will look. I'm choosing to make this call because of an escalation. There's some reason. I either can't get online, I have looked online, I don't understand it, or it's just more convenient for me. I've made that choice. So why do you tell me something I already know? And the other thing I find in the contact center, and I still absolutely agree, it's not very little personalization goes on. It's very polite. Don't get me wrong. Agents are well scripted and top and tail the call very well, but it's just not personalized. It's a generic conversation you're often having 90% of the time. Not that I try to phone call centers anymore or contact centers. I do tend to do it being a digital native. Or trying to be mostly online, but I don't know, the mindset hasn't changed, I think, in a lot of organizations yet, how to deal with those consumer channel choices.
But still, I really value the contact center agents that we have still today, because they are the ones that can make the difference. But the challenge that we have is that we do not equip them with the right tools. And if we just equip them with the right tools, that they have the information, like I said before, at their fingertips, then it can really make the difference. I think personally having that service agent or call center, I'd rather speak about service agents because it covers a bit more. But if we are talking about service agents, they can make that connection. They can actually build up that relationship, guide them through whatever a customer needs. If it's a B2C customer or a B2B, and even in B2B, the human interaction is even more important of the long-lasting relationships.
Yeah.
You really need to have all that nitty-gritty detailed information. They can do so much more. And I always say, instead of looking to a cost center, you can also think about a profit center where you have like that personalized experience. I always refer back to the grocery store in the 60s, where we did not have all the channels, but where we have small grocery stores in each and every village. And the person that was behind the counter, he knew everything about you. He knew of what you have bought. He knew what your preferences are, because and you always get back to that person because he knew you. And this is the relationship that we need to re-establish and still need to build. And I think companies can do better here. And it's not about only the account manager or the customer service agent. They should all work together. And a lot of vendors say we need to break down the silos and create a one unified customer experience. I think that corporates need to think about, or organizations need to think about, how can we actually align with with all our employees, maybe working client cases or whatever. How can we bring that unified view? And I think that AI tools like we have today can actually help to augment or to bring that knowledge to each and every frontline worker. And a frontline worker is like from sales to marketing to customer services to field services, etc.
Yeah, no, I agree. The technology, and hopefully we'll come on to that, should be used from a service agent perspective to help them hyper personalize the experience. And we're so far away from, I even think, a small level of personalization, never mind hyper personalization, so, the classic, and I do think of it, my buying the coffee, I close to the office, there's a small coffee shop that I would go to most morning. Now, we invested in a rather large, expensive coffee machine in the office, so economically it's cheaper for me to go into the office, press a button and get my flat white, but I still choose to go first thing in the morning to my coffee shop a few yards up the road. And one morning I come up and the guys have seen me crossing the road, and my flat white, which I will drink, was sitting ready, and he goes, "I've seen you come across, I assume you're still drinking the same." And I go, "Yes, I am." And you have a little conversation. So I know it's not the same in the service industry, but that level of hyper personalization, I think we should be striving towards that, because and again, this is obviously a very small sample survey, as a consumer, is not making an economic choice here. I'm making a choice based on the experience. Yes, if they doubled the price of the coffee or the flat white, I might reconsider it. But they're not. And as I said, I have cheaper ways of maybe getting something similar, but I'm losing that experience. So I think we do need from the industry, try to focus much more on using the technology, and particularly like the GenAI, to help, and it is human in the loop, to help service agents, to help frontline staff, be that on sales and marketing or on the service side, to hyper personalize that experience. And I think the winners will come from that. And I don't know what your view is on that, and if we are anywhere near close to getting to that.
I see a huge improvement. I think we are getting there now with the new GenAI tools. And I think last year or 2 years ago, we had like OpenAI announcing that ChatGPT, and then a fire started. I think that the urge now to change, because everybody is talking about it, the urge to change, that's already helpful. They see that combining the knowledge from marketing and customer services will be that differentiator. And they start to acknowledge it. And now they have to question, how am I going to do this? How am I going to integrate it? How am I going to break down that silo? And I'm already here for more than 15, 20 years working on this topic to bring marketing, sales, and services together. First with aligning the overall KPIs, bring them all together in team meetings and just start talking to each other. But that's on management level and team level. Now we also need to bring down it to the frontline workers and say, okay, what information do we actually need to bring to each another? And I think that with some Gen AI or the tools that we can use, it's going to be easier to crawl all the information that it's available. So I think it will now, we have seen over the past years that it flattened. And I think now with the AI, I will not say hype anymore because AI is there already for ages, but that we now probably will kickstart the curve, and that we will, and that's also what the analyst says today. So I somehow agree with them that we probably will kickstart it, and that we will now see an acceleration in transformation because we can now combine easily and ask questions all that information.
And again, from your insights, so you're working with large organizations in the CX consulting space, as part of digital transformation. How do you see they are tackling, I was going to say the problem, not a problem, the opportunity of Gen AI? I know there's a bit of a Klondike gold rush in the early few months when everybody was like, everything had to be Gen AI. What I've seen in more recent months, it kind of subsided a little bit. There's a bit more realization kicking in. But you're talking daily to larger organizations. What are you seeing where they're at now? How are they approaching to leverage the technology, specifically Gen AI, and what are the sort of things they're doing on a practical level?
It depends a bit about the customer and how they see it. But what I see today is that I really think about how can I optimize my business processes. That's for now a bit of the that's a bit of the gold. How can I optimize the business processes, and how can I bring all the information together that I need to do my job? So if we look at the contact centers, we see that they dive into knowledge management. Okay, what knowledge what do we have already available? How can we crawl those different systems and bring it back together so that we can create a model for it, or what model can we use for it? Because we have different kind of models. Quite often they just use the models of OpenAI or Microsoft, of AWS, and then see, okay, what will be working for us the best? What will be the best tone of voice for us? And the same we see in the marketing departments, where they much more think about, okay, how can we help to create content on a larger scale? So looking at, for instance, a marketing campaign, if I need to have one picture, how can I make easily adjustments to use that picture more and more instead of doing a lot of photoshopping or doing large photo shootings somewhere in a particular area? Or how can I create easy in a marketing campaign different kind of images for different kind of personas? So that kind of automation. So that's where I see now today concrete use cases where they really think about, okay, what use cases do we have? First of all, logical business processes. Then what particular use cases can we use to start using that generative AI? Different kind of tools, and then they think about what kind of tools can we use. So I see it now more like they start using the small use cases, then see how can we scale it towards the organization. Hence, I do not see a lot of scalability today, but hey, we are in the forefront, so they start thinking about how can we scale it. And very much about, okay, what data do we put in? Because not all the data needs to be there. What information do we crawl? Are we using inside information? Are we going to combine it with third-party information? Well, I do not see much companies doing that already, not from our end, but very much, okay, what our internal data do we use? And of course, next to it, security. So the information that we bring in, that we use with our tools, is it secure? What works with our networks? Because it's also asked a lot of the networks that they use, company networks. So that's what we see today. So we see small particular use cases.
You mentioned there, and I think it is the core of being a data scientist. From your background, I'm sure you would agree, data is key here. First party and third party. You mentioned, you touched on there, you see our organizations are starting to consider third party data. Do you see much of that? What sort of data sets, and obviously it will depend maybe on the industry that you're in, but what sort of data sets do you find people from a third party data they're looking at to leverage and utilize to help on the sales, marketing, sales, and service side?
I see a lot of marketing research data around, is there already industry insights that we can use for our own customer research to, and especially in B2B world, what information do we have from other companies that we can use to bring into our marketing campaigns and value props to automate. I see also a usage today of third-party data around, well, it's basically marketing research that I see today. Other third-party data I didn't saw it yet, or they have their own repositories. But that's the first part that I see now. Yeah.
And in terms of, they're obviously are looking at, the business processes, what data they can use. Do you see them, and again, with the context of AI and GenAI, do you see them moving from proof of concept pilot to production, or again, where are we at on that sort of evolution stage? And obviously it will vary by industry and by customer, but in general, from the organizations you've worked and are working with, where do you see them on that evolution? Are they still proof of concepting, maybe mini pilot, or they reach production, or all of the above?
I see a lot of pilots, and I see already also that some go to production, and then people, and that's always nice to see. When something goes to production, then you see sparking the fires across the organization, like, hey, what tool are you using? Will that be suitable for us? Can we also use it? And that's also the risk, because it's quite often tailored for a certain kind of task. So then they need to think about, okay, how are we going to expand to other parts? Can this tool be used? What use cases do we have? And then we need to see, okay, will the model, can that be adapted to? But I see more and more now tools going to production, yes.
And again, and I'm conscious we're probably come up when we usurped a lot of your time this morning, Karin, against our time. Any lessons or anything you've seen, thus far? Because as I said, a while ago, there's been a bit of a Klondike, a bit of a gold rush over the last, year and a half. Yeah. The sort of lessons that you're seeing within organizations that you feel other organizations could adopt or adhere to, things that have worked well, or perhaps things that haven't worked so well?
Well, if I look at the past, not only 1.5 years, but more in general, is that we tend to forget about who is actually our customer, and who is the customer, and also who is actually the employees who are working with our customers, and that's also for production department, so that we tend to forget actually for who are we producing, what is really our existence in the market, for who are we doing this. And I see a lot of companies that are diving into cost cutting, who actually lost sight of the customer. But I have seen also companies that did cost cutting but still focusing on the customers, who did very well. And one of the biggest lessons learned, it's always transformation. You're always optimizing. If you integrate a new technology, you're never done. You always need to think about, how are we going to evolve. What will be the next steps? Don't forget here again about the employees, because we have seen it in the world. We bring a new technology to our clients. The employees needs to use it, but if they don't know where they need to use it for and why they need to do it, and that's just an evolution, because quite often an introduction will also give you a bit of a setback. And that's something that you really need to think about. Okay, if we are changing a contact center, or if we changing from a marketing automation, or if we integrate a new tool, why are we doing this? And actually, can we adopt this new technology? And if we are not, and then also have, why are we doing this for this customer? Is it because there is because we need to add new channels? If we are adding new channels, what is actually the rationale behind? And will it be an add-on? Do we want to move things? How are we going to serve the customer? What are the messaging? It's always a transformation. It's not about when the vendor is done that the project is done. It's always about the evolution.
Yeah, I think that's, you just hit on the word I was going to introduce, the evolution. Because I've again seen large organizations so they do quote unquote transformation, and it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they finish that project all over the line. Some of them don't survive, metaphorically, and then decide 6 months later to come up for air to breathe, and then all of a sudden that project or transformation have been delivering for the last 4 years. The technology has now moved 4 years on, and then somebody said, well, we need to transform again. So I think moving away from this concept of transformation projects to constant evolution and getting that into the mindset is particularly given the rate of change within the technology world, particularly with AI. So an organization being focused on constant evolution as opposed to defined transformation projects that ultimately wore teams, employees, implementers, customers out. I'm not sure if you would subscribe to a similar thought process.
I would subscribe it similar. Yeah.
Fantastic. Karin, listen, I think we've probably ran over time, and I'd love to get you back on again. And because I know we only scratched the surface on some, particularly around the employee impact, and I had intended we would chat a little bit more about that. We didn't get there. I didn't get to spend any time chatting about your time at Shimano. I like a bit of cycling. You being Dutch, I'm sure you cycle quite a lot. But I was going to try and quiz you a little bit more about Shimano and their products and services, because they are certainly in the cycling world, they're up there with the best product and service you can achieve, and from a consumer perspective. But perhaps the next time we'll do a dedicated cycling podcast. We'll talk about Shimano.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Shimano and all good things cycling. Maybe at that stage, the Tour de France will have happened, and Tadej Pogačar will have won another Grand Tour. But Karin, listen, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that. It's been fantastic talking to you today.
Thank you very much. It was likewise. It was a pleasure to talk to you, Oliver.
Perfect. Thank you.